At this time, I'll call the Oak Island Town Council public hearing and regular meeting to order, July 13th, 2017. And thanks to everyone for coming. Glad to see you out tonight. At this time, I'll ask Councilman Jim Medlin to give us the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day, a beautiful day we've experienced here in Oak Island. Thank you for this beautiful place that we live. Thank you for the people here. Thank you for those that are here tonight who are concerned about things in their town. And our prayer tonight is that you would give us wisdom as we deal with the issues that are in our agenda packet, that we would make our decisions based on what's best for the people of Oak Island and what would move us forward as a town and help us to sustain our tourist economy and to provide services for our residents. Thank you for the opportunity to serve in this capacity. We would lift our first responders and our military people to you tonight, wherever they are, they're in harm's way, Lord. Would you please protect them and guide them? And for all this, we'll give you the praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Council Medlin. We begin our agenda tonight with the first public hearing. The purpose of this public hearing is to receive citizen comments on a request to rezone two parcels at 6502 and 6504 East Oak Island Drive from an R-6MH to a CB. This was a citizen-initiated zoning request, and it is adjacent to parcels to the west are zoned, and the parcels to the west are zone CB. Do we have anyone?
Yes, Betty Hupp.
I'll remind everybody that when you come to the podium to please state your name, and there's a 3-minute limit.
My name is Betty Hopp. I live at 7916 East Yacht Drive. The property east of Jones Restaurant on East Oak Island Drive should remain residential. Mrs. Gullidge, of course, knew it was residential when she bought it. Our land use plan, adopted by the Oak Island Town Council, January 10, 2017, and certified by the Coastal Resource Commission, February the 8th, 2017, Section 4, page 51 states that, and I quote verbatim, the residential areas adjacent to commercial CB district should remain as residential and primarily single family. I repeat, the Town Council signed this in 2017. Councilman Charlie Blaylock and Jeff Weinkoff were members of the Comprehensive Land Advisory Commission that was composed of 13 full-time residents, along with Kelly Germain, who very ably chaired that committee known as CPAC. 1,921 surveys were collected, and a majority said no more commercial property on Oak Island. All residential, single families preferred, and preserve our tree canopy. One of Mrs. Gullidge's points is that nobody would want to live beside Jones Restaurant. I say that a canopy of red cedars closely planted will protect any resident from anything. The planning board passed on her property rezoning 4-3. Of the 4, 1 is a builder and 2 live in Kings Lynn, which is in a totally different lifestyle from most of Oak Island. The area to be considered for rezoning is in the last area that could be most affordable for future Oak Island residents. Please do not allow this disaster. Follow our new land use plan and disapprove this rezoning. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Bobby Thompson.
Good evening. I'm Bobby Thompson. I live at 235 Northeast 64th Street. I'm a full-time resident of Oak Island. I realize that a lot of folks who have made this island their home for years suffered badly in the Great Recession And I understand that now that property is moving again, there's a desire to catch up and make as much money as you can while you can. But it behooves everyone to stop for a moment and think about the future. Yes, many folks buy property here because it's one of the few places where coastal property is still affordable. But supply and demand will undoubtedly change that advantage in the near future. But the other reason that folks decide to make Oak Island their home is the lifestyle they find here. Family-sized homes, trees, wildlife, and a sleepy little town. That is something the City Council can help preserve. And better yet, you don't have to ask for a tax increase to pay for it. You just must show that you have backbone and principles. If when you ran for the council position, as many of you did not long ago, you pledged that you would only support commercial development off the island, then I ask that you honor that pledge and the land use agreement and vote against this rezoning action. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, can you tell me the last name, please? Jones, okay, thanks.
Hello, I'm John Jones. I own Jones's Seafood House, 6404 East Oak Island Drive in Oak Island. And I live at 46 Yale Pond Way in Oak Island. I've been down here for 52 years. And I'm opposed to this change. My uncle tried to do a similar thing, a similar map amendment, and change residential into commercial and was denied, which I believe was the correct action then and is the same now and should not be allowed. There's no reason to permit the change other than monetary benefit to the current owners that purchase it as residential and want it changed to commercial in order for them to individually profit from the change. There was plenty of commercial property for sale when they purchased it, and there is now plenty for sale. If you allow this change, not only are you going to devalue existing commercial property, but you are also opening a floodgate for everyone wishing to make a quick buck to ask the town to do the same thing. I already know several waiting in the wings to do this if this is allowed. Excuse me. My family owns several lots on East Oak Island Drive between my restaurant and Yo Palm Beach where the commercial starts again. And they have indicated to me that they want to do the same thing with their property. So I believe it should not be changed now as that, even if my family does own more property on them streets, and it should stay like it is right now, I believe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jones.
Art Skipper?
Art Skipper, 400 Ocean Drive, Oak Island. Madam Mayor and Town Council, thank you for allowing me to speak. And this will be the first time that I've ever spoke before Town Council after all these years. And I've served on probably every board that y'all have down here. But I thought it was very important that I come and speak. I am opposed to this rezoning. I do not think Town Council should rezone residential property on Oak Island Drive to commercial property. There's lots of commercial property available. I don't think rezoning residential property to commercial property was in the land use plan, which the lady just spoke to. Several have been denied previous requests, including Ocean View Methodist Church, who simply wanted to use a residential lot as a parking lot, and they were denied. I own residential lots on Oak Island Drive as well, and I am against the change because it is not in the best interest of the town and its residents. But if this rezoning is approved, I should be allowed to have mine rezoned too. But I'd rather it all stay residential. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Skipper.
We have someone who came in, and I don't know which public hearing she wanted to speak to. Linda Carruthers? This one, okay.
Good evening. My name is Linda Carruthers. I own the Captain's Cove Motel, 6401 East Oak Island Drive. And I'm here to speak against this rezoning. I feel like there's no less than 12 totally undeveloped lots, as I rode here tonight, that are already in the commercial area. There is a number of storefronts, actually less than there was 2 or 3 years ago, where we had really empty, rundown storefronts because people weren't using them, and then we start looking like a little ratty ghost town. And we're getting ready to build a big public shopping center. So why would we need more a residential lot turned into a commercial lot? Until we get to capacity on what we have zoned commercial already, I think that it's just not a good idea to just try to keep spreading it all down around the town. I think it's much better to keep it compacted together. Now, when it gets to where that's full, then there's a reason. But right now, I think we have ample, ready to develop and developed commercial property to suit our little town. And if we get too much, then we're going to start looking like a ghost town again, because the people aren't going to be able to make the money to sustain their businesses, and they're going to get abandoned and run down, and we're going to start looking like a ghost town again. So I am opposed to it.
Thank you. Any more?
That's all I had signed up.
Is there anyone came in late that would like to address this issue? Just state your name, please, for our records. Go, you go.
Appreciate you letting me come. My name is Ray Helms. I'm a long-term resident of Oak Island. Live on Northeast 38th Street, and I am for this rezoning. I just want to point out to all who are here to hear that we had a complete block of commercial property that was commercial on 40th Street that we rezoned to residential street, shrinking down the availability of the commercial availability. This particular property is adjacent to the Captain's Cove and Jones's Seafood, so it fits within a good proximity of commercial. It's not like it's in the middle of housing or something like that. So I think the proximity of it is something to consider as being in conformity to the area and the use. Also, I had an opportunity to speak to the adjacent homeowner to the right of that. He's actually redoing the house. I think he's Mr. Helms, not related, but I had a minute to talk to him before I even knew I was going to come and talk, and he thought it was a good idea. So I'm for it. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Okay, with no one else to speak, I'll call for a motion to close public hearing number 1.
Motion to close public hearing. Second.
Second, all in favor? Thank you. We can make a decision on this tonight. Would you like to hear from Jake before anyone like to make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to deny the rezoning application.
Second.
All in favor? All opposed? So noted. All right. It's public hearing number 2. The purpose of the public hearing is to receive citizens' comments on proposed amendments to Chapter 32 vegetation. Do we have anyone to speak?
We have Miles Varner, but I think he meant to speak to item 2 on the consent agenda. Is that correct?
Does anyone wish to speak on public hearing number 2 before I close it?
You guys, people stop talking in the audience.
Excuse me, if you have a conversation, I'm sorry, it's disrupting the council. No one wants to speak on the visitation, public hearing number 2? This time I'll entertain a motion to close public hearing number 2.
So moved.
Second, please. All in favor? Okay, we may also take action on this issue tonight as well. You need to hear, does any of the council need to hear from Jake? Excuse me, sir. Would you, yes, ma'am, yes, sir. Jake, yes, come up and explain, please. I'll hold them, we won't call for a closing until they hear from you.
Okay, so as I'm sure you all remember, there was a grant we received from the NC Forest Service to produce a model tree protection ordinance, and that was closed out and was not brought before you. There was a large joint meeting between the Tree City Working Group and the Planning Board, and the developers were invited as well on January 12th, and we decided at that point to close it out, but the action item from that meeting is to draft something minimal and different prepared by the Planning Board to bring before you that took some parts that were liked about that ordinance and bring it before you. Some of the language we added in. We had a town forester at one point, and we don't have one now, so there's a clarification renaming that tree inspector. This is in chapter 32 of our code of ordinances right now. That's a really clerical minor change. The primary portion of it is on page 26, I believe, of your agenda packet, and it essentially requires a tree permit to remove trees. If you have a established home that's already received its certificate of occupancy for people to live in, it requires, if you're going to cut down trees, or you don't like where a tree's located, or you don't like the species and you want to cut it down or replace it or whatever you want to do, to require a tree permit to do so. It only applies to the island side. It does not apply to hazardous trees that have to be removed. The tree fund is set up just to go into a fund set aside just for purchasing of trees and trees preservation and that kind of stuff. It does allow someone, if they want to chop down every single tree on their lot, to do so, but there's a permit, and the $50 fee needs to be paid for each tree below 5 on the lot. So it's set up like that, or you can replant it to offset the cost if you want, and it depends on the larger the tree you replant, the more cost offset is created. That's essentially the gist of it in a nutshell.
Brian,
Mayor,
I'm sorry, excuse me, I'm sorry, that's out of order.
Well, I'm trying to get a clarification.
Well, then during the discussion with the council, you should be able to hear. If you'd like to speak in the public hearing, you can get up and speak, but according to our attorney, you're out of order.
well, it's not a debate right now. It's the public, I thought didn't we close it?
We haven't closed it.
And if he wants to come up and speak.
Yeah, we left it open if you'd like to come up and speak. I'll give you that.
I'm asking the question.
Well,
Sir, it's not
an
appropriate to do it
open
from the
hot-
chair. If you want to come up and speak, you're more than welcome to do so.
Thank you.
That's
We always
essentially-
have these online too, before you come to the meetings. We always have our agenda online for you to read before you come.
And there's a
And it's
staff report that explains it, normally a 1 to 2 page summary, with the exact wording highlighted as well, for anyone to see.
Madam Mayor, why don't we invite the gentleman to come speak and voice any questions, then Jake can come back up to the podium and answer those.
Would you like to do that?
Yeah,
Sure.
you want to do it now?
Yeah, that'd be fine.
We did close the public hearing.
You want to close the public hearing?
We did close the public
I
hearing.
thought we did too, so
Yes.
we need a motion to open.
It's fine, you can open it again. You just need a motion to open it.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to reopen the public hearing, please.
Second? All in favor?
My name is Pete Laffey. I live at 3403 East Yacht Drive. Okay. My question was, that I posed to him was, I heard about a $50 tree removal. I asked did it apply to new construction where they're clearing land? Because there seems to be a lot of clear cutting that I'm observing just driving up and down the island. And $50 is not something that's going to prohibit that. I don't think that that's a reasonable cost. I think there has to be some thought preserving the vegetation that exists on the island. So that, basically what I'm saying, do we have an ordinance that prevents clear cutting of new construction property? And who's enforcing it?
If you'd like to close your comments, we'll let Jake address that.
Sure.
I think the appropriate procedure would be allow him to sit down.
Okay, yeah, we do have regulations for during construction, say someone applies for,
So could you go ahead
Excuse me. I'm sorry,
and proceed if you're finished?
Well, my other question is, who's
Well, this-
enforcing that?
okay, yeah, I heard it, I can answer all those
Fine,
questions.
help me here.
All right, I'll leave it up to you.
He'll address both of those, sir.
Right, so we do have in chapter 3276.1, we have regulations regarding trees. If someone comes in to apply for a development permit or building permit or something like that, the way it reads is, if you take the total square footage of the lot and you divide it by 1450, the resulting number is the amount of trees that you have to mark on your permit application paperwork to be saved. And, depending on the size of the lot, it's going to decide how many trees that is. Typically, it's a number anywhere between 4 to 8. Larger the lot, more trees that have to remain on site. So that's currently how it works. We do send, after a development permit has been issued, staff out there to verify what's been marked in the permit on the scope of work, to verify that it matches actually what's out there on the site. For the most lots in Oak Island have not been clear cut. I probably get a call about once every other week saying a lot's been clear cut, and we go out and to inspect. It's happened about 3 times in the almost 2 years I've been here where it actually has happened, and we've forced the contractor to rectify the situation and replant. But typically what happens is they will put in the very corner of the lot a little cluster of 4 to 5 trees, and they will meet the minimum ordinance requirements and not be in violation. The ordinance is enforced by myself and my staff, of which we're hopefully soon about to get one more.
Jake, that is an ordinance that we have on the books right now. What we're talking about, the new content is new, correct?
Yes,
And that's on existing homes.
as it stands right now, after your home is CO'd, we have no more enforcement power other than perhaps the nuisance ordinance. But you can chop down every single tree on your lot if you choose to do so right now after you've received your certificate of occupancy and it's been cleared for habitation.
Okay. Let's close the closed session, then you can discuss.
Close the public hearing.
Yes, close.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second, all in favor? Okay, now we have the opportunity to discuss and ask more questions.
Just a comment, Jake, to you. Part of the problem that we're experiencing right now is the new stormwater regulations, state stormwater regulations that are requiring such a, I don't even know the word to describe it, demonstrative stormwater system to retain the 1.5 inches of stormwater we have to retain on an average 50-foot wide by 120-foot lot. By the time that stormwater system goes in, if there are any trees saved at all, they'll have to be back towards the very back of the lot. And I have observed that. I have made it a point to go and observe that on several new constructions just recently. So that's part of the issue as far as the new construction goes. The other comment that I would make, last time I checked, I bought a lot on McGlamry Street 17 years ago. It had a house on it. And when I bought that lot, I paid for those trees too, and they belong to me. And I shouldn't have to get a permit or pay somebody $50 to cut one of those trees down if I decide I want to do it. That part of the text amendment that's in our packet, to me, is completely unnecessary.
And I agree. If I get ready to cut down a tree in my yard, I don't want to have to come get a permit for $50 to be able to cut a tree down. I have a backyard full that are about this big around. So is there a stipulation of how big of a tree we're talking about, or just a tree?
Well, our tree definition is 1.5 inches at breast height diameter,
Okay, and if I
1.5
have
inches,
If
and
I
a
have a
minimum of
pine tree
15
that's leaning
feet.
up against my house, then I'm gonna have to come get a permit before I can cut down that pine tree.
As
Okay,
this
correct.
is written, yes.
And then we have to have it enforced as well.
Yes,
staff.
yes, that's true. And I agree with what Jim said about the state stormwater. It actually changed to 3.5 inches at one point, briefly, several weeks ago, and essentially put a moratorium on building because it was just impossible. And there was an outcry from municipalities to the state regulators, and it all got reversed, and it's back to business as usual now, the 1.5 inches. But that was an issue we dealt with. One thing I forgot to mention is Planning Board did recommend approval, and one question I failed to answer to the gentleman in the audience was we do have ordinance regarding clear cutting that is much higher. I think it's $500, and it can be, at the staff discretion, $500 per tree if we were so to choose to do that. And that's the max that the state general statutes for a nuisance ordinance allows us to put on. And that was a special text amendment done around the end of 2016 at council's directive. So we do have the power to implement high fines if clear cutting is done.
And I appreciate you making that very clear to the council and to the public. This does not change that ordinance at all as far as the new construction. Is that correct, Jay?
Correct, yeah. This doesn't bother that at all. It's just different.
Any further discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes.
Jake, well, first of all, I'd like to say I can certainly understand how an average person would think that a lot is being clear cut, but when you get the size of the lot, the size of the house you put on it, and there's just not much left, and that's just the way it is. But who is a tree inspector?
That is whatever designee I happen to send out there on that day, which also may be myself.
Okay, if we implement this, is that tree inspector, is that going to be a full-time job?
No, that's just a title. I mean, it used to be town forester, and we don't have one anymore, and I don't expect we'll have one anytime soon. That is essentially just a title for the person when they go out there and they're verifying that tree compliance has been met. That's it. I mean, there's really not much significance to it.
So how many visits would that take?
Well, when the development permit is issued and they request their first inspection, we'll do it then. And then also when they request their final inspection, we do it then as well. They submit to us an as-built survey, and we verify that what we permitted and what they applied for actually matches what's out there on the site. And if it doesn't, we have them make it match. So you know, they'll be in compliance with the land development codes.
Now, are we talking about the change on the existing lots, or are you talking about the new lots?
I'm talking about what's before us here tonight.
Okay, so that's the existing lots, homes that are already on, lots that there are already homes on.
I thought Loman was asking
Well-
about if someone who applies for a development permit to build.
Both ways.
Yeah, I mean, if someone, well, okay, so I answered your first question, if someone applies for a development permit to build. If this were hypothetically to be adopted, and then someone came to us, here's my tree permit, fill it out, we say, okay, we process it, we issue it to them, yeah, we would go out to the site to verify that if the tree permit was for 2 trees, that they didn't cut down 20, hypothetically, to make sure it was followed.
No survey needed?
No survey needed.
Okay.
Jake, if I were to build a house and I clear cut all the trees off of the land after I built the house, what would happen to me? I cut them all down.
You could be fined $500 for every single tree.
Could be or would be?
Well, I think it would depend on the situation.
Why?
Well, let's say there's only 3 existing trees on the lot and they were in the corner and it was clearly an accident, or they were right by the property line and it was a mistake. You know, those kind of things we have discretion to do about it. But if it's a clear, you know, I don't care, I'm breaking the ordinance because I want to do what I want to do type thing, then we would most likely lean the other way.
Well, then it's up to the discretion of staff, is what
Yeah.
you're saying.
I've only seen, since I've been here, 3 instances where reported clear cutting a lot ended up being valid. And we had them. It also depends on the willingness of the developer too, to immediately replant something comparable in a timely manner to, you know, resolve the issue.
But isn't it made clear to the contractor and to the people that are building the home that the trees are not to be cut and clear cut?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
that's
that's
pretty clear,
in
isn't it?
the permit itself as well as in the ordinance, and we always append the ordinances to the applications as well.
Then, so there should be no mistakes in clear cutting a lot. They should know ahead of time not to cut the trees.
But I think we're way off base because we're not discussing our
different
current
ordinance,
tree
yeah.
ordinance. This one is totally different. This one is existing structures and what's gonna happen to you if you start cutting trees. And I agree with Jim. I'm not in favor of being able to charge a permit fee for every tree that you cut off your property.
So to bring it back into focus, we're just talking about the content in here, nothing to do with the penalties for the other. That may be
Right,
another
I was
conversation.
just answering
future.
questions. Sheila's
What-
right, it's not applicable to this specific text amendment.
But I think we need to be,
Very
because
clear.
remember, we had a problem with all the contractors coming, cutting trees, putting it out in the town, was paying to go pick all these trees up. I think there needs to be something in there, if a tree is over a certain diameter, that there has to be a permit so we can keep track of this. So if somebody does come cut a tree down, the town's not paying to go haul these trees off.
I might just remind us that in our packet, Article 5, tree protection at existing houses, and that's what we're supposed to be discussing.
Yeah.
And this thing has gotten a little bit out of,
That's what I'm discussing.
Jake, one more thing. Is this, if a person has a house and they've got trees, for some reason they want to cut one down, has this been a big problem or a lot of complaints, or how did this come about?
No, it was because of the closed-out tree protection ordinance that I'm sure you guys saw. It was very long that we decided not to bring before you for adoption. That meeting on January 12th, when all the boards and interested parties got together, they decided to close out that grant and to leave it up to the planning board to draft something that they thought was more in the middle down the road, that gave both parties something that was workable. And that's what you see before you now.
Okay, well, the only thing that I'm thinking, and I know there's, I'd say most reasonable people, and maybe there aren't reasonable people, but you have a house and you have trees. I don't know how many people are going out there and just chopping them up and to make their house look better or what. I mean, is that a big problem?
I don't want to hazard a guess and give you wrong information. I don't know if it's a huge problem on the island. I don't know if there's a way to find out if it's a big thing that happens on the island, and maybe if you talk to all the tree removal companies or something like that. But I don't know is the short answer.
Yeah. Well, usually there's a reason, if it's a pine tree and it looks like it might fall or something, but just to blanket go out and start cutting down trees, I don't think people do that because they add so much, and it's certainly possible, but I just don't think that's a thing that happens every day.
Any further discussion? I may entertain a motion.
Close the public hearing first.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we had closed it.
Did twice.
We
Closed it again.
Did you close it again?
Would David, or who would like to explain it? Anyone like to explain it to the audience?
They can always come ask Jake, but I mean, that's the purpose of the public hearing part,
It's to speak at the beginning.
right? Because it,
All right, at this time, I entertain a motion. No motion?
If I make the motion, I'm going to make a motion to deny it because I'm not in favor of
Make the
this.
motion.
Okay. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to not approve amending the tree protection ordinance.
I think it'd be better, cleaner, just to not take any action. If there's no
Thank
motion,
you.
then you just move.
I don't think it's going to die from, let's,
I'd like a second. It
wait a
does.
minute. Now
We have
let's-
a tree protection ordinance that has just been enacted, and I think that's going to be enough for right now.
So Brian, what are you
It's not in
saying? Just
favor of
to-
this.
I'm saying that the public hearing's been closed, you can take action. If no action is taken, nothing's changed.
Just,
Okay, thank you.
so would you, with,
I withdraw my motion.
all right, moving on. We're moving on to the presentation, proclamations, and recognitions. Tonight we have the Corps of Engineers. Is Pam here? Mr. Kelly?
I don't think she ever came in.
I don't think she's here yet. We're going to skip down to the DOT's presentation with Mr. Chad Kynes. Chad, come on up and introduce who's with you. I'm not sure. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Chad, we invited you here tonight and hope to work with the DOT on some sort of resolution or if there's any way to solve an issue that we have as far as commercial piece of property we have or the town that's in the city limits. Again, hopefully there's something we can do like we did in Southport and see something that the light bulb goes off that will make it better and what that property can be developed.
That's what we're here for.
Thank you.
So I'm Chad Kynes with Department of Transportation, Deputy Division Engineer. And with me is Karen Collette. Where you at, Karen? She's our Division Engineer. And we also have Miss Jessie Leonard. She's our Division Traffic Engineer. So once we get through talking about this, if you got some other questions, since we're all here, feel free to ask any questions.
Okay.
So
Welcome, ladies.
So basically what I've done for this evening is just put together a presentation. It's kind of like an update, but we'll go into the specific issue with that one parcel that you just addressed. So we'll just start on the first slide here. What I have is NC 211 update, and this project here, just to give you some background, I'm not sure how much everybody knows about this project, but it basically goes from Middleton, Midway, back into Southport, where we're taking that facility and going to a 4-lane divided. And we've put in 2 interchanges, one at Midway and one at Long Beach. So currently, the current let date, this is when we bid it out and get the bids back, is June 19th of 2018, a little less than a year away. That date is still on schedule. There are some issues with utilities and so forth, but we are pushing as hard as we can for that let date. Basically, on the widening section itself, going from the 2 to the 4-lane, all that, the design is complete. We're out there purchasing right-of-way today. On the interchanges, they're trying to catch up with the rest of the project, but currently right now for Midway Road, the plans are 75% complete, and we are currently out there buying right-of-way. And just to go to a picture real quick, this shows a schematic of the proposed interchange. And what you see in the upper left corner, which is what I'm going to call the northwest corner, that's the existing Lowe's. The northeast corner, we just got through signing that right-of-way agreement. That was owned by Mr. Batuias, so we just purchased that acreage in there, so that is under our right-of-way there. The southwest corner is Mr. Young's. That's what we're going to get into a little bit more details. And then the southeast corner there, most of that's owned by St. James in that corner. Was there any specific questions about this interchange? I can come back to this.
Yeah, if you don't mind, like,
I'm going to try to work this pointer here.
yeah, if you will,
So-
could you, just for the public's knowledge and the council who hasn't been in some of the meetings I've been in and seen the details, would you show if you were inside that property and you had a house on the Young property, we'll call it, as it stands right now, how would you come out of that property?
Okay, so this is the Young's property in this corner here. Oak Island's back this way. I'm gonna explain this interchange real quick. So this is 211. The actual Middleton or Midway is actually gonna bridge over 211. So this will be free flowing through here. These are your two ramps. They'll get you going in both directions. So if you were coming from Oak Island and you wanted to head back to Supply, you would just go over the bridge. This is a free-flowing ramp that goes into this ramp. And then this is free-flowing going back to Supply. There'll be a merge lane right in there.
Okay.
So if you were coming from Supply and you were coming to the beach, you would just make this right, come up the ramp, and come back to the beach.
Now, what if you're going to Charlotte? If you're coming out of this property here, I think we just need to understand why it will not be viable for commercial use, if you can.
Right, so.
Why the big box, why the developers will not look at it, just because of how it's turning.
So this movement here, let's say you had something developed in this box right here,
Sure.
and you wanted to get back to Supply or Charlotte, you would actually come out here and make this right, and you make this right, and you come down getting this free-flowing movement. So
there's four or five turns before you can go back to Charlotte?
yes, but they're all rights and they're free-flowing once you get up to this left right here. So after you get through this left here, it's all free-flowing. Now, what I want to do, before we get much further, I want to go back into the details on this. Okay. This parcel, over the years, and this starts back in 2009, and I want to talk to you about how we purchased that access in there. So starting back in 2009, we built the second bridge to Oak Island. We purchased to control that access because we knew a future interchange would come at this point sometime in the future. So we paid that property owner $2.3 million to control the access on Middleton. So back in 2012, the property owner came back to us under a hardship, wanted to know if we could buy additional right-of-way for this 211 project. And in 2012, we paid another $2.3 million to this property owner to buy the access along 211. And we left him with 150-foot access to this piece of parcel. So in all, the state has paid about $4.5 million to control that access for this proposed interchange that was coming down the road. That makes sense?
Yes, yeah. But was the interchange, that off-ramp at that time in the plannings? Because at the beginning, we just heard it was going to
in discussions during those years. That's the reason why we went ahead and purchased that property.
Okay.
And, there wasn't a plan. You don't start planning until we start getting funding, which we just did a year ago.
Okay.
So, but we knew an interchange would likely go in there, and that's the reason why we've gone ahead and paid for that back in those years. And the property owner fully understood all that.
Sir, just a quick question. At that time, was that not intended to be a cloverleaf intersection there?
That was probably one of the alternatives. They had different alternatives back then.
That was what we were shown then.
Yeah, but it really wasn't planned like it is today. We're much further in the planning at this point. And just to show you just some timelines on the interchanges, because this all came together pretty quickly once we got funding. This was March of 2016. We started talking about putting the interchange in there. Let's see, April 2016, that's basically when we came up with the funding for the two new interchanges. Let's see, April 19th, that's when we came up with some different alternates. As soon as we came up with the alternates on April 21st, we met with several of the town officials, and we had pretty good response there. July 27th, we met again with Oak Island, St. James, Mr. Young, Mr. Batulius individually to talk about our preferred alternative and to go over what everybody selected. And then September 28th, final alternates were chosen. And then, once again, November 10th, we went back over those alternates with the Southeast Mayor's Group.
And that's when the Southport interchange changed?
Yes, yes, and that's when we chose that option 6A on theirs, which I got a picture of that one there.
And it's
but-
important to note that the reason that was chosen was because that kept that commercial property from being taken and used. It allowed that to be developed for the revenue for Southport.
Yeah, so this is Long Beach. This is that development there that we were able to preserve on that.
Exactly.
And I will tell you, they've also just got right in, right outs out of that parcel. So it's real similar to the way we've got it set up.
Okay.
So, I'm just trying to get all this clear in my mind. The intersection up there at Long Beach Road, where the development's going to go, there are two accesses and entrances off of that loop road, right?
Right in, right out.
Right out, yeah.
Now, with this design, now we have met with the Young several times with the family there, and, you know, he's continued to request access on the ramp road. Let me get a picture. So this is what I'm gonna call a ramp here. He's requested access here and on Middleton, and of course, you know, we'll continue to deny anything on Middleton and anything additional on 211 since we've already paid for it. But one thing DOT and engineers will not allow is access on ramps. These become safety issues. You want these ramps as free-flowing as you can get, or you'll have safety problems down the road. So we have denied that. Now, I will say with this design, we have offered, what happened, this is his existing access. He has an existing 50-foot access, which he agreed to. That was only going to become a right-in, right-out. When we put this interchange into design, this is going to allow a left into the property. So this driveway now is a right in, right out, and also a left in. And we have also said we'll consider you for another right in, right out up here a little bit further west.
Would that help solve the issue of no one wanting to develop it without?
I can't speak for that, but I can tell you that's a lot more additional access than what he's got today.
So the only issue from that piece of property is going to be if you're going back toward Shalot. Everything else would be a right turn. If you were coming back to Oak Island, you would go onto the ramp back to Oak Island.
Yes, ma'am.
If you were going to Southport, you would pull out, make a right, go to Southport. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that is his biggest concern, is going back to Shalot. But being from, I can't stress enough, once you make that left, it's all free-flowing. It's free movement.
When you're going to Southport, coming back to 211, how would you go to Southport?
Make a right.
You'd make a left?
I'll say that again.
If you're going, instead of going over the bridge, making the loop, heading back towards Supply Shalot, say you want to go to Southport, which way would you go?
You'll just come down here,
And
and there'll be a
take a left
signal there to let you out.
There's left on the 211.
If you're coming from Oak Island, you want to go to Southport, you just make that left and free flow. This will be an acceleration lane here.
Will there be a light, a traffic light at any of those junctions?
Those will be two-phase signals. There will be lights right here.
Right where?
I'm sorry. These right here, these two right here.
There'll be a light down here,
Yes,
and there'll be a light up here.
yes.
How about over there, where it comes back out, where you, as you can go out that way to Midway Road, there won't be a light there, right?
No, sir. 211 will stay free-flowing.
So, we're talking about safety issues. We're gonna be dumping, if that property develops, then we're gonna be dumping all that traffic out of that development into Highway 211 with no traffic light. It looks to me like that would be a greater safety issue there than it would to have an entrance off of this
It's gonna be a huge safety issue.
ramp down here.
Well, once he comes up with a plan, he's got to submit what we call a TIA. And we have to see what's going in there to see how to treat or how he'll need to treat the traffic out there. You know, it depends what he brings in on that site. And until we have that information, you know, right now he's just planting boxes right now. And, you know, depending on what type of boxes go out there is how we adjust.
Well, our concern, sir, is not, and I really don't care how much money was paid to the Youngs. That's not really about any of our business. Our concern is that that's one of the last prime commercial development properties in Oak Island. And if we don't get the proper access into and out of it, we're going to get not good development in there. And that's our main concern. And it looks to me like, of course, you guys are experts and I'm not, but where that traffic's going to be emptying out of that project, however it develops on the 211, is going to be a greater hazard there, far greater than it would be if it was off of this ramp down here. And I think there have been driveways approved for the ramp going into the Long Beach Road property, right?
Yeah, let me go back to this so I can explain this to you. So this interchange design here, there's two big differences in the interchanges. This is a area where it's already been developed, and we're trying to go in there after it's been developed. So when we build this is not going to have as good a level of service as what you have at Middleton. And this was already existing, so this is the only person that's going to continue to have access here. And the other key to this, and once again, I go back to it's already existing, and we never purchased the controlled access in there like we have on the Young's property. But this has been designed to accommodate that, even though if this was all vacant land, we would have controlled this.
On the left side over here, I don't know if it's true or not, but I have been told that one big box store has said they won't go in there because of the limited access. Is that, you have any feedback on that?
I do not.
That's kind of what's happening with the development on our commercial corner. There's no access, nobody's gonna, well, you see, try to get out of that spot. Even in the future, if there's just a few houses in there, you won't be able to get in and out.
So there'll be clear access all the way from Southport all the way through, right? All the way through, like, past both Bridge Roads and
We're
on
talking
towards
about
Charlotte, right?
Middleton now? Middleton?
No, I'm talking about coming from Southport. There'll be,
Coming from
there
Southport?
won't be, yeah,
What about the traffic light?
like down to 11.
Traffic
There'll
light
be,
at St. James?
yeah, okay.
Yeah, the main, on this project here, the main focus was getting this bridge right here, because this is a lot of traffic movement here, and getting rid of this very large signal right here. This is gonna help the traffic flow tremendously through this whole system here.
Could you go back to Middleton,
Yes.
please? So hypothetically, in the future, if we're looking at the future of Oak Island, that's our main concern here, we're looking at 10 to 20 years out. If this is left like that, it's $0 revenue to the town of Oak Island because there's no in or out, hypothetically. If it's like that, that's a lot of money that this town's going to lose just because we don't have a driveway. That's how I see it. It could be Mickey Mouse's property as far as I was concerned. I'm only, as mayor, I'm only looking at it as a future revenue for sales and property taxes for the city of town of Oak Island. Now, I'm sure everybody would feel the same.
Well, we do, and that property she's referring to up there has 4 entrances into it, 2 off of Midway and 2 off of 211.
Midway Commons, you mean?
Pardon me?
Are you talking about Midway
I'm talking
Commons?
about 211. I'm talking about Midway Commons here. There's four driveway entrances into that property. And this property over here is basically larger, much larger than that piece of property, and this is only have one entrance and one exit.
Mr. Medlin, previously you were talking about, or somebody was asking whether the interchange was there or not at the time. And when Mr. Young came to the department, there was a project on the books. Lowe's came in, there was a project on the books. I cannot explain nor do I know the details. It was right when I first got here, I think in 2012. The project and the interchange went away after we had purchased Mr. Young's property. And then the project came back. Right. In between time, when there was not a project, and before there was a project this time, Lowe's came in. That's how they got the driveways that they got. At the time, we weren't going to put an interchange for that brief couple of years, and so they got that.
Well, regardless of that, ma'am, DOT had to approve those driveways, right?
Yes, sir. And at the time, before the interchange, they were acceptable, still are. But at the time, when Mr. Young came to us with a financial hardship and asked for us to buy that quadrant, we did, and we bought it with those stipulations. That's in the deed. That's what he signed to. I'm really, apparently he didn't talk to the town when we purchased both of those lots, or maybe we could have been involved in the procedures back then. But that was 8 years ago that we paid for one of those parcels, and 5 years ago we paid for the other, and there was never a question of whether or not the town could make, have a tax base out of it.
I'm sorry, Jim, go ahead. No, my question is, where's the harm? If you gave the man another way, what would be the harm?
Well, we did. As Chad said, when there wasn't going to be an interchange, he couldn't have a left in or any consideration at all for another driveway down to the left. The fact that we put the interchange in changed that typical section up underneath there to consider. With the interchange, without the interchange, she couldn't have any more access. Right in, right out, that's it, one. With the interchange, it changed the typical section width down to 11, and we are able to consider a left into the property and then perhaps one further down onto 11.
But
when,
sorry, go ahead.
but when the DOT was doing this, it seems to me like we weren't involved. When they decided, when you decided, you and Mr. Young, and you were back and forth and so forth and so on, the well-being of the town of Oak Island, being that a huge tax base, as we've said, we weren't in the process, were we?
Well, no, but I don't know that it would commonly be in the process.
But you would think that if you're going to
approval.
impact a community like that, that you would want that community to know what was going on.
Pretty sure there was a public hearing for that interchange way back in the day. So it's probably common knowledge that it was on the books. Then it was off. The project was redone. Then it came back. We did a public hearing. We don't necessarily, we don't get the approval from a town to buy property.
I'm not saying that. I'm talking about being a good neighbor.
I apologize. I wasn't here in 2009 when we did that, but normally the town does know if we have a project coming on because that's what the public hearings are for. Did they not have it back then?
Yeah, this is a new council. We hadn't had it since.
Oh.
The only thing we saw was when Chad came and showed us the options.
Right.
We later learned that and at that time, I think it was the first month we were on council. And at that time, they showed us two options, and this is what it is. We had no idea that that was going to impact that property like that. And at that time, I don't know that we voiced, it was 2 by 2, so I don't know how many voiced objections. We did question some of the turns, which seemed to be a little out of sync as far as what we're used to.
I want to go back to one of Mr. Scott's questions. What would it hurt? We've also advised Mr. Young, once you purchase something under control access, like we've done, it's just not us that purchases it. There's a committee, that comes from Corps of Engineers. I mean, there's a large committee. One thing he can do, and he has the right to do it, is go back and ask for a break in that controlled access that we've already paid him for. He can go back to a committee. And that committee can decide, if they want to do a break in that access. Now, if they do or they don't, I don't know, but if they do, they make you pay back whatever value that is worth today. And it wouldn't be cheap if they did allow it. So, but that is an option, and, we've told him that several times, and we have not seen anything on that.
But I also told him that I didn't support.
Right.
I wouldn't support it in Raleigh.
Well, we've already stated, whatever the Youngs do and whatever they're paid is really none of our concern. Our concern is from the development standpoint for our economy here on Oak Island. I'd like to ask you a couple more questions.
Yes, sir.
Is that going to be Highway 211 when it's widened? Is it going to be a divided highway with a median?
Yes, sir.
How's there going to be a left turn into there?
It'll be it'll be what we call a directional leftover. There'll be a separate left turn going into there with islands. There'll be islands.
Turning through two lanes of traffic if they turn left in there, right?
Yes. Well, we're going back to one lane in each direction at that point right there. So they'll just be taking a left because the 4 lanes actually starts tapering down, right there at Midway. So it goes back to its 2-lane pattern on that side.
Where can you show me on your map where the 2-lane would stop or where the 4-lane would stop?
I think it's past his property line. We could get that section.
Down about where the left turns are.
Where the left
Where
turn?
where you see that red median in the middle of the road.
Okay.
That's where it's coming together right there.
Okay, that's about where the 4-lane would go to.
Yes.
So you mentioned earlier that you all would allow him another access beyond this one for a right in and right out?
Yes, sir.
Right in, right
Yep.
out only.
And we'd have to go back to that control access committee, but that's something we would recommend.
Okay, so you're saying you would recommend?
We would support that.
Yes,
We would support another right in, right out, and also a left in.
Is there going to be a traffic light at what the entrance is now?
No, sir.
No, sir.
You won't be crossing all 4 lanes. You'll just be, it's like a super street sort of, where you can either go left in or you can do a U-turn. There won't be anybody going all the way from one side to the other.
And I also want to repeat again, depending on what he brings in is what we may or may not can allow. I mean, right now, we don't know what's going in there. It's hard to tell anybody anything until we know who's committed to that, how many trips that's going to generate, and then we can look at more specifics.
Well, under the circumstances, with them not being able to see adequate access there, probably nobody interested in going in there right now until that's corrected. So we could conceivably see that property go undeveloped for a long, long time because of that.
Yeah, Mr. Young's engineering.
That's our concern, honestly. That's our only concern.
His engineering company presented a plan, and I can't remember how many, 4 driveways or something like that, and that was a discussion. Mr. Young was concerned we were keeping him from developing his land, and so my suggestion was to get his engineering firm to use the data that they have, use the driveways that they have, and form the development from that. That would be the most efficient way to develop that property. It's not that nobody will go in there. It's just there's a certain size or a certain amount of activity that may or may not want to develop there, but I'm not a developer. I don't know.
If that interchange was not there, would there still been the opportunity to do like the one across the road?
He would be down to a right in, right out.
Same thing would have.
Worse.
He would have less.
He would have less access.
Okay.
And remember, even though, okay, so we had the interchange and then it fell off the books. We had already bought the right-of-way for that quadrant then. we already had the right of way, even when it wasn't, the interchange wasn't going to go there.
Let me ask this question.
Yes, sir.
Where you make, I'm back to this again, because the safety of our residents is gonna be a big concern. Once you make the left to go up there to where you can turn back to right to 211, is there a light there?
The lights are just on, on Midway. The lights are just here and here.
And there's nothing there? Because right now, we have the safety of going to a red light, stop and take a right, going to Midway. We're a retirement community.
Right.
Now
So we're gonna put a lot of people at harm, going all the way back, trying to make a right on the 211, with traffic coming 55 miles an hour and no light.
Like you said, it's free flow, which
Yeah,
is going
it's
to be
free
65
flow.
miles an hour.
You're going to actually have an acceleration lane that's going to come underneath there where you can merge over.
I think
You'll end up with the same situation we have up here by McDonald's, where we have a contest to see who's going to get ahead first.
That's so that all the big trucks can come from the port, from Southport.
I don't know. I saw one up there the other day. I thought they were going to go to war.
This was one of the, the department was thinking, for the first time, we can be proactive. Because if we didn't put this interchange in here, and the development hits there, and the development hits over there in the northeast corner, that intersection would have went to what we call level of service F quickly. It would have been just like Long Beach Road. And this was the opportunity for us to jump on it and fix it while we could before it got developed.
I have nothing against proactive. I just have for safety reasons.
Right.
I mean, that's,
And this is safer than a four-way stoplight. Much safer.
If he had not sold his right-of-way rights, would there have been a different plan for this property?
Not on Middleton. Middleton, I believe, was done 10 years ago. That was the gist of it, was to have the least amount of access on Middleton as possible. I don't know that he'd get a whole lot more than what we're just talking about.
The right in, right out.
Left in and right in, right out on the other.
Well, I think St. James, the first street they put in there off of Middleton was supposed to be right in and right out, and I think it is. But now, hadn't there also been another left in put in there now? Off of Midway Road into St. James?
I don't have the details on that. That's the one that goes through Mr. Williamson's property. That was a very complicated, challenging issue. I don't have.
So is this.
But that was Mr. Williamson's access. Another one wasn't added, if that was what you were asking.
And that was also went to the Control Access Committee.
Yes, sir.
All that was worked out amongst that committee.
So we make sure we understand where the traffic lights are gonna be again. Show us again where the traffic lights are gonna be.
So your traffic lights are gonna be on Midway right here.
Right there and right there. But not where you come out into 211 at either place.
Yes, sir. There's a median all the way through there.
Sure.
And so you're gonna have through traffic, and the new you were talking about going to Southport, you'll come up here, you will have to turn left. But then when you come down this ramp, you will turn right, you'll have your own lane for a little bit until you decide to get back over and merge. It's not, you don't have to stop and get in a lane that's already gonna be occupied with straight through traffic. You will have your own lane for, I don't know how many feet. But you'll be able to pick up some speed and merge over much more safely than you would turning out from a dead stop. Same over here on this one. You just come and just keep going and merge over.
You're calling this a ramp, this loop road here that comes around. How long is that? Do you know?
Yes, sir. How many acres is in there, Chad? Was that 6 or 7 acres?
Yeah, it's about 6 acres in
I don't have the
there.
cord length on that, but I can find out.
You're probably looking roughly at 1,000 feet. I had a note here. Did somebody have some concerns about access if there's a fire department or something built out here? Is that concerned about how they would have access.
Now, the ones that talk at one time about, we are gonna have to put a fire department over there in that area. There was talk at one time about a fire department somewhere on Midway Road in that general area, yeah. Would that make any difference?
Well, you know, the one thing about fire departments, we allow breaks wherever it's placed. You know, if there's a median out there, we would put a break in there. Fire departments, so they don't have everyday public transport, you know, people going in there in and out. It doesn't create trips. So fire departments, first responders, we give them an access wherever they're located. So if that was a concern, I just wanted to make sure we had that addressed, that, you know, depending on where a fire department would go, we can make sure they can get out and get any direction they need to go.
Well, we're probably, depending on how this develops here on both sides, not too far away from having to put a fire station over there.
Would the town be interested in building in this quadrant?
In the DOT land?
Yes, sir.
Are you gonna give it to us?
Well,
If,
They'll sell it to you for a price.
no, actually, no. If, in October, I think is when the law or bill, I don't know, if it comes into effect, there is a clause that would allow the Department of Transportation to give land to a town if it was surplus or, you got it.
yes, so what I can do, I can leave this copy with you. So this was just passed in this year's session, but it's House Bill 501. You want to look it up. But we were doing some research on this, and on page 3 of this, it talks about where the DOT can donate land as long as it's good for the public use, which it probably means fire departments. So what I've done is kind of made a map of our available property inside these ramps. And if that's something the town is interested, this would be like a pilot on this House bill.
Well, let me ask you a question. I don't mean to be doing all the talking, but quite a bit of that land inside that loop there is wetlands. And also quite a bit of it is impeded with utilities, underground utilities. How much of it, I mean, I don't know, I haven't looked at it from that perspective, but I doubt, I just don't see how that would work.
So this piece right here is close to 7 acres, 6.7 acres. That little piece in there is probably about 1 acre. It's isolated wetlands. It could probably be developed on. There's plenty of room in there. This little piece right here is 2.5 acres. That's high ground. And this little piece that we got left right here, this is a piece of high ground back in here, but that's 2.6 acres over there. So that would be something we're willing to consider for the town if the town wishes to do so. But any of these quadrants in here, we can get plenty of access to a fire department or rescue squad in and out.
Well, we appreciate that. That would be a wonderful thing, but the most important thing to us right now is to get access to that property so we can get the right kind of development in there.
Any more questions for Chad? I think we pretty well see the pictures. It's clear. No more questions? Comments, anyone? Chad, when we looked at the, and I know this is off the wall question, but when we were looking at the Southport interchange, there were 6 options, but we only had 2 for ours. Is that because our area is just so limited on what you can do because it's?
Yes, and really those first 2 alternates were the best alternates we could ask for. This level of service will do this area for 20+ years, whatever develops out there. That's the reason why the control of access and all that. But for 20 years, it'll be what we call on the green level of service, A and B for the next 20 years plus. So those are, that's a very solid design there. And, you know, the other thing is it minimized the impacts, you know, where somebody has seen the 4 clovers. You know, that would have taken just a lot of right-of-way, a lot of impacts for those designs. So this was a good fit for that area.
Was any consideration at all given to using the property over there where it says Southport Supply on that side of the road?
Yes, that's a conservancy. All that area in the green there, it can't be touched.
Midway Road.
What about the area in gray?
There was not enough room just right in here, and we actually own part of this in here. But we need, you see how far this comes back? It was gonna need to do the same thing. It was gonna have to come out here a little ways. But we couldn't get in that area.
So nothing can be built in that area?
DOT wise, no.
Huh?
No, sir.
DOT wise? Okay, I got it.
I do have one more question. When this does start, what kind of impact is it gonna put on the town as far as being able to access? Or that road be built? I mean, if you're gonna build a bridge there, something's gotta be impacted.
So the good thing about this alignment here that the folks enjoyed, see how we're shifting it over? We're able to keep existing traffic
Environmental.
right here, and we would build these ramps first.
Two side, okay.
And then we would build this, get traffic on here, and it's all open. Our hope would be is to start construction on this. You know, once we put traffic on here and close this down, we would start on this after Labor Day, and this will be open by, help me out, Memorial Day. So, you know, there wouldn't be any inconveniences, a lot of inconveniences here for the peak season. This can be built pretty quick. You know, these ramps can be built and traffic won't even know anything because it's, you know, it's not affecting traffic.
So basically, when you begin your elevation for Midway Road for the bridge, that area of Midway Road is gonna be shut down for a long period of time, isn't it?
We hope just for during the, we will still keep traffic on this 211.
Right, I understand.
So, yeah, this traffic here, we will keep traffic on here as long as we can, and then we may have to turn it here, you know, once we're doing some work on the actual structure here. But the intent is to keep traffic here as long as we can while we're building this. But this whole thing should only take 9 months to build. I think it's only a 1-span bridge going across 211. It's not a lot to that bridge.
One last question, anyone? Mr. Collins, we sent you a list of different issues that we've had from our public, and I guess we'll get with that on a different occasion. Maybe sit down with us and talk about some of the, I believe it was crossover issues.
If you'll just send me some dates, Jesse and I'll come down for that.
All right, great. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Mr. E.B., it's time for the update on the pier.
See if I can get to my slideshow. Sorry, I was going to update one. No. Okay. This is the Yopon Pier update. The design team is myself, E.B. Pancook with Andrew Consulting Engineers, Brian Ladd with S&ME is the geotechnical engineer, and Jason Familetti is the electrical engineer. I'm the only member of the design team here tonight. Quickly, I'd like to just look over the 3D models that we sent over a few weeks ago. We'll make that very brief in just a couple slides. I wanted to spend most of the time on the concept photos that we put together for it. They're photographs from other projects, you'll have to, don't think that they're exact replicas of what you're looking at, but they should give you a pretty good representation, since I know there's a lot of limits to what the 3D modeling can do. One thing I did put in here, if you are interested, is we were able to find a video of the Crystal Pier. That's a pier we designed a few years ago. It was going through Hurricane Matthew, and we've got a video of that. It's the type of performance that we're shooting for your new pier. We also want to go through a update on the permit process, and then any questions. So the 3D model, we're showing a timber and aluminum rail options. So the timber rail, again, this is about the best 3D modeling can do at this scale. But you'll notice that the railings don't allow a lot of light through them, a lot of views or anything else. But they are convenient for fishermen, having a little shelf, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Aluminum rails are a little bit cleaner looking. There's more views through them. There's also maintenance advantages, but again, I'd like to get to some concept photos and discuss the bracing, how it'll look, the timber details, and some of the other items. So the overall appearance of the pier would look something like this. We're trying to eliminate some of the longitudinal cross bracing that you see right there in front of you. We're going to try to do every third bay instead of every single one. Your pier has a couple T-heads on it that help us stiffen it up, and we don't have to put as much as we had to do at Crystal Pier. But that type of system worked pretty well. Just so you know, this has got the timber system that we've talked about a little bit. So you get a good idea of what that looks like on an actual pier. Bracing, again, these are photographs of Crystal Pier. Your pier has quite a bit of side-to-side movement. If you look down it, you can see it snakes back and forth a foot and a half in some places. We would like to put cross bracing in the middle, so in this area, when you look down the pier, you'd have X bracing all the way across instead of the K bracing that we have here. Most of that is due to the soil. The soil in your area is much different than what we had at Wrightsville Beach. We also will try to limit the bracing over the beach. However, at low tide, you have quite a bit of your pier exposed. About 25 bents are exposed, so 300 feet of your pier is over dry land during low tide, and that's too far for us to span without putting in bracing. But again, we're going to try to limit that and make sure folks have a good opportunity to walk through it and it doesn't feel like a barrier. The timber details, we've spoken a few times about trying to use a manufactured pier deck that is fabricated off-site. That would give us several advantages. One is it reduces construction time. Instead of trying to build a pier 25 feet over the water, you could build it at a manufacturing plant, have it shipped here, and everything when you talk about top-down pier construction gets very slow. You can install 4 piles a day, and then you have to frame. And then you put new bracing in, you crawl your crane out, and you install 4 more piles. For Crystal Pier, it took a solid 5 months to do it that way, and it's a 350-foot long pier, and we are looking at a 900-foot pier here. Of course, we don't have much more time to deal with that. It also improves safety. Instead of having people standing out over top of this area trying to install the framing by hand, it will just come and be able to be flown into place with a crane. It's still construction over water, so there are some safety concerns, but this would help improve that. Building this timber deck in a manufacturing manufactured facility would also let you pay better attention to some of the finer details on it. The deck board edges could be covered as we're showing in the photograph, where it covers the ends. It gives it a cleaner appearance. It's easier to hide decks boards that are curling. You could route all the edges. That's something that's done very inexpensively in a manufacturing plant. If it's done on site, it has quite a few problems with it. One is your pressure treatment preservative would get shaved off on site, and you'd have that everywhere. It'd be an environmental problem. Also, it just costs a tremendous amount to do that. So we're also looking at getting lower costs from having it manufactured off-site and brought into the area. And then even spacing. You go to a lot of piers and you'll see that the boards are, I wouldn't call them haphazard, but you'll have a large gap and a small gap, and things will be off cue a little bit. In a manufactured facility, you can really even all of that out to where you don't have those types of concerns. You can also put some kerf cuts in the bottom of the boards that ensure that the boards are cut properly throughout its lifespan. Even if you install boards in the correct direction in the field, with the sun, they can still reverse their curvature and start ponding water, and that increases aging and that sort of thing. But anyway, this is an idea of what the pier edges would look like in our plan. FRP decking. This is a item that FEMA has requested that we take a look at. FRP decking would give us larger gaps in between the boards. There's a lot more open surface area for the water to go through. This is important because it reduces the load impacts from waves. Quite often, the waves that damage a pier come from below, and they hit the bottom of the boards. If the boards are fastened too tightly, it'll take off stringers, girders, that sort of thing. With FRP, it allows the water to come through. What we would like to consider for the Yopon Pier is to install that down the center of the pier, and then on the edges where people are fishing, continue to have the timber. You wouldn't be able to lose things through the boards as easy. It'd probably feel a little bit safer because you're not looking at the water quite as much. So we did think that would be a good idea to put about 5-foot strips on both edges of the pier. That would be your main use area. And again, the FRP would lower the loads during a storm event. We'll have different FRP options that we can show to the town for your input. We'll make sure we pick the right product that you're happy with. But this is a standard product for marine use. This isn't a new product, and we're going to come out here and experiment with you and see if it works or not. This is a product that performs very well. It's held up in many marine projects around the world. We talked about the look of the timber railing. Here's an example of what the timber railing looks like. For a pier, we'd recommend slope top cap. You could even have a vertical board that kind of gives you a ledge there that you can sit your skinning knife, your bait, all of that sort of thing. And it gives you a spot to rest your pole up against. We're not exactly saying that this is the spacing between the boards that you'd have at your pier, but it does give you an idea of what this looks like. One thing we do want to make sure you know is a lot of top caps like this have a tendency to curl on the ends, and it gets unsightly, and it's easy to get splinters. We've got a pretty good design that keeps that from happening. If you look at this railing, this is a railing that we designed back in 2007, and it was put in place in 2009. The photograph is from yesterday, but there's several spans where it changes from one board to the next, and we're able to keep those pretty uniform to where it doesn't get the other look that you may be familiar with. The other option is an aluminum railing. What we have done at this time is we've designed both options, and we have the aluminum as an alternate. so that the contractors can give you a bid and you can see what the cost will be, and you can make the decision at that time. The railing system that we would recommend would have 3 rails, not the 2 that you see here. I don't want you to get the wrong idea. The aluminum would actually lower maintenance. It's easier to clean. A lot of the reason because people can't set their bait on top of it and that sort of thing. It's damage resistant. Yes, it can dent, it can bend, but these are pretty stable members. They're the same sizes that they use at the Wilmington Riverwalk. About the most that happens there generally is the paint will get scratched. It's also a corrosion-resistant material. Aluminum lasts very long in an ocean environment, which is something that we're concerned with. And we're also if we did this this type, we'd use corrosion-resistant details as well. Generally speaking, that means you embed the timber railing into the posts, and you don't have a lot of screws and nails to keep those together. And again, that's just an easy way to keep this looking nice and performing well and being safe in an ocean environment. And it's also less obstructive to views, so that's why a lot of people try to go with the aluminum. It's easier to see through the railings. We'll have 2 railing heights. One will be full height, and we'll also have some for disabled persons. It's just a lower rail to help them with fishing, but it does meet the ADA standards, and it does meet the North Carolina Building Code being a lower height. We'll work those into the model, into the pier at pretty regular intervals, so that it's at good fishing locations and it looks appropriate. Lighting. We may be a little bit premature in showing this. We actually have a meeting set up with the town manager next Wednesday, so to discuss the lighting. There's several concerns that we have with the lighting that you have right now. One is the light levels don't meet any type of standard. The building code really does not have a lighting recommendation or standard for ocean piers. However, if we are going to put lighting out there, it should probably meet some standard. The lighting levels that you have now, they're not even, and they don't give you the type of candle light that would be recommended for most uses. Secondly, the lighting should be turtle-friendly lighting with the amber color. This is not a code requirement at this time. It's what we recommend. Because if and when it becomes a code requirement, you'd have to switch out all your lighting. So we'd rather get ahead of that. And there's also some permitting issues that we're going through where the marine fisheries are looking for ways to not impact sea turtles especially. So we thought this would be a way to increase our chances of getting favorable permitting from them. Also, lighting has to be directional. It needs to only shine on the deck as much as possible. The light fixtures that are out there now are not directional. They shine over the water as much as they shine on the deck itself. And then we would recommend that we just use tow lights for the ramp going from the parking lot up to the pier. There's really no need for the poles unless you like that look. The tow lights would be less expensive as well. We've got a lot of other options. If you don't like the ones that we're showing you, these are just 3. And again, we've got a meeting next week, so hopefully you don't beat me up too much over the look of these lights. This is a type of light that's available. Personally, I don't think it's the most appropriate, but as you'll see, there's not a lot of options. We did want to let you at least see this. It would give us basically, we're looking at parking deck level lighting. It's low, it's not too much, but it does give you good views that you can see where you're going and you feel safe. It's turtle friendly, and it's very directional. We can cut it off to where it only shines right where we want it, and it gives a nice even lighting appearance. One problem with a lot of lighting is you get bright spots and dark spots. With this one, we could spread the lights out further. It performs very well, even though it looks a little bit European in my thoughts. Another option, this is an option that the electrical engineer designed for Jeanette's Pier. So these are photographs of Jeanette's Pier. You can put the lighting down the middle, or you can put them on the railings. They are directional. They put them down the middle just to really to reduce light and to get better lighting patterns. But as you can see, even with this type of lighting, it's very easy to get light spots and dark spots along your pier. Another option would be more of a traditional pole type light. These would probably have to be placed at closer intervals to get the light levels correct. But again, this is something that we'll talk about in more detail next week and try to make progress on. Thought we would at least take a look at this. It'll open. Now, we do not have sound for this, but there's really not a lot of sound anyway. So one thing, it's not just showing you the waves, but if you take a look, you can see the railings, the different heights. We use the timber railing on this project. But this is at full storm surge. We do not recommend that anyone does this on your pier when it's finished, or this pier, but it's nice to know that actually a lot of people feel safe out there. I have another video of somebody walking their dog out there, so apparently it's stable enough for pets as well. Again, we don't recommend this, but obviously it's not just the daredevils out here enjoying the hurricane as it comes through. But these were significant waves coming and impacting the pier, and this is. I think
I'm actually surprised they didn't close the pier so you wouldn't be able to get on.
It's owned by a private entity. They should have closed it, but I'm not sure why they did not. They've obviously never. So anyway, just showing you that. Just to give you an idea of what we're hoping your pier will be able to perform as. We designed several other piers in the area. We've got a pier that's been up for 30 years for Cape Fear Community College, and their marine fisheries pier has performed very well. And through all the storms, I think all they've had to replace are some deck boards. So there's a few considerations. The permit update, the Cayman Major permit has been applied. It's under review. National Marine Fisheries and North Carolina Marine Fisheries are reviewing the Endangered Species Impact Report. Their main focus at this time is looking for ways to reduce the impact on endangered species during construction. As part of that, they've requested a construction moratorium until the middle of November. We have already talked to the Corps of Engineers and CAMA about that moratorium, and we've got two things that we've heard consistently from both of them. One is they're both in support of approving the permit. Secondly, they're in support of approving an earlier construction date than the moratorium. We have floated the idea of a September or very early October start date, and they have both said that they would support that. The turtle nesting season ends in early September, and really at that point you're just worried about them hatching and going out to sea. They would want to know that there are not turtle nests within a certain distance of the pier. Not a huge distance, mostly for laydown area and cranes, but other than that, they don't think there will be a problem. What they have recommended is that we wait to make that request to Marine Fisheries until after they have finished their review. Basically, if they haven't finished their review and we ask them for a decision now, we'll get an unfavorable decision. Once they have reviewed the situation, it's a very reasonable request to get them to move up earlier. One thing I would like for everyone to understand is we are finding out all of these issues from the Corps of Engineers and from KEMA before they're official. That means that they are letting us know what is being discussed, what the agencies think before they have to give us an official response. That speeds up our reaction time quite a bit. We've been able to review and update the endangered species report 2 or 3 times to provide additional information to marine fisheries. And I believe we have even discussed a couple ways with the Corps of Engineers and KEMA to speed up the permit review in a way that does not harm Oak Island in the future. We've done a few permit reviews where folks have been a little too political on them, and they'll get that permit. The next permit usually turns into a bear. So we'd like to avoid long-term repercussions. But right now, we have everyone on board. Marine Fisheries, they're doing their due diligence. The due diligence actually goes up if you are receiving money from FEMA or any federal government agency. So that has increased the timelines, but it's increasing it for large amounts of compensation that you'll get for it. But that does add to the review period and their due diligence.
Thank you.
At this time, are there any questions?
Any questions from anyone?
I have a couple.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else? And you may have already covered this in another meeting, and I just hadn't gotten the information yet. Cost of the timber railing versus aluminum pipe, the aluminum rail.
The posts are the same. The posts will be at the same spacing. The aluminum material is probably more expensive. Over time, you'll probably save money. There's been several railing upgrade projects that y'all have had to do on your pier just to keep it safe. The aluminum lasts a lot longer. It'll probably outlast the pier.
Could the wiring for the lights be put inside the aluminum pipe?
Usually what you do for that is we'll run different posts for it. We'd run the wiring below the decking.
Okay.
We're actually planning to have a chase built under the decking for plumbing and for lighting. And in the post for the light, you'd run the electrical up those posts so you don't see it.
Okay.
On tow rails, what you do is you actually drill a hole from the bottom of the timber posts so that it's all encapsulated in that, and you never really see the electrical. There's a lot of details that we can that we put into these. We're actually the engineers for Bellingham for all their timber docks worldwide. So they're pretty high-end docks, and there's a lot of details that we try to get into these to where they work better. And we also consult with a couple folks that have run marinas to figure out what their typical problems are. So like the plumbing, we've got a special, we like to plumb piers differently. We like to do them out of a flexible plumbing and not rigid PVC so they don't break as often. We like to put cutoffs at different points so that you can still feed everything but isolate sections for repair. There's certain valves that work better and don't freeze up in the winter. I know it doesn't freeze very often down here, but over the water it can with the way the wind blows. So we'll have purge valves and all that sort of thing planned into it as well.
I noticed the one you showed us that had the aluminum rail that didn't have a wood top cap. You could do both, could you not?
You can do both. It depends on how y'all want to do it. We could modify it and give you both. It may eliminate the advantages of both, but we could do that.
That's all I had. Thank you.
But when do you anticipate having the final draft to submit to the council for approval?
Well, we are still working on the geotechnical report, but that is due out next week. We've discussed it with them. The structural drawings are pretty much finished. Okay. I'm going to do about a 15th review on it tomorrow or Monday. But we're getting very close. We could probably show it to you at that point, but we won't have the electrical ready at that point. Electrical engineers in the area are very overwhelmed. Most of them have about a 3-month lead time before they can start a new project.
Okay. All right,
But with
thank you.
our lighting meeting next week, we should be well on our way to getting that worked out.
Thank you so much for your time.
No problem.
Good job. All right, this time we're going to take a 10-minute break.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, at this time, I'll call the meeting back to order. I have a few adjustments to make to the agenda, and then I'll ask any of you. First one is we're going to add the brunch bill to new item 4. We're going to add a committee appointment, which is the part 3, under committee appointments. And I also would like to remove the speed limit conversation from the consent agenda for discussion.
Mayor, you also had another application for,
I do? Oh, I'm sorry, we do have another application for the Parks and Recs. And that's Lisa Nolan. Does anyone else have any amendments or additions to the agenda? This time I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
So moved.
Mayor, I move that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second? All in favor, please. Unanimous, thank you. Moving into our public comments section of the agenda. Madam Clerk, do we have any?
yes. Donna Italiano.
Please state your name and limit your comments to 3 minutes, please. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Donna Italiano, and I reside at 212 Northeast 54th Street. And I'm here tonight to request that a walk at 58th Street and Oak Island Drive. This crosswalk would be for pedestrians, and also a pedestrian traffic light needs to be installed at that intersection. And it's for the safety of the residents and visitors who cross over at that area. The volume of the traffic on the island during the vacation season makes crossing Oak Island Drive very difficult. And at the intersection, there are no painted crosswalk paths on the road for the pedestrians to follow. The timing of the traffic light is not sufficient for pedestrians to get across. When I tried to get across it took me 3 green lights to get across because of the timing of the light doesn't allow you to get across, and also the traffic coming opposite you, turning left, they don't allow you to cross over. So they are not adhering to the right-of-way to pedestrians, particularly in this summer vacationers. We need to provide visual warning to vehicles that pedestrians are crossing and are present in that area. There's only one tiny little sign that doesn't even sit on the corner. It's way back, halfway down near the end of the new Soho Realty building there that they just built. And that's it. There is nothing else. Geographically, this area is clustered with many businesses that have a high volume in the summer months. And additionally, people are carrying beach wagons and attire and small children as well to get to the beach. Anyone who may not have who has a mobile difficulty would find it impossible to get across. And I'm thinking of anyone in like wheelchairs, canes, that type of thing. I'm concerned that drivers are not made aware of the pedestrians' presence. There are no signs placed in the vicinity, nor most of the island. And I guess my feeling here was, in summary, that we should provide safe pathways for our residents and visitors, and to provide enough signage to drivers that pedestrians are crossing. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Katrina Purser.
Katrina Purser, 5001 Oakwind Boulevard. Tonight I'm here on behalf of the Beach Preservation Society. We've had already an extremely busy summer. We have been a part of 2 farmers markets, managed a cornhole on beach day, supported the North Carolina Aquarium in presenting 2 programs. One was today. It was labeled Our Living Shells. Greeted about 300 new residents at a newcomers gathering, sent 2 newsletters to about 400 readers, and reached over 2,300 people via Facebook. So overall, just in 2017, we have engaged in over 4,000 adults and 200 children in learning about and enjoying our beaches. The advisory board has assisted in Fort Casual's education staff in beach monitoring ideas, rebuilt and repaired bike racks at accesses, purchased new beach lover signs, and developed and updated the pages for the web page for the town of Oak Island, for our part of the town of Oak Island website. And then our final program for the aquariums is on August the 12th at 2 o'clock, and it's on sharks, and it's a good family-free thing that you guys can go to. We also want you to mark your calendar for the Coastal Cleanup Day. That is Saturday, September the 16th. And then we want to make sure that we send our thank yous to Public Works. They've worked very hard in putting up all of our signs and keeping the Beach Rover running. Parks and Recs for hosting the aquarium programs and the beach day. And then all of you for your support, the members volunteering, renewing your memberships and everything.
Thank you, Ms. Person. I'd like to also say thank you to what you do and what all the Beach Society members do. It's impressive, and we're so proud of you. Do you know if you've had any new members from all this outreach programs?
We have. I don't have that with me right now, but we have gotten several new memberships off of those.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mary Brewer.
Mary Brewer, 3524 East Pelican Drive. And I'll be the first to admit these remarks would have been better made last month, but I was sick as a dog last month, and you didn't want me up here. And this is about South Harbor. I know that they are members or citizens of Oak Island, no question. I also know that they get their water and sewer from the county and aren't burdened with this gosh-awful bill that the rest of us have to pay. With that difference, they could all buy memberships in the golf course. But let's say you don't want to spend that much money. Well, there's a couple of things you can do. One is stop charging the town rent on the space occupied by the pro shop. That would help the bottom line a little. It would also help if the town didn't have to pay for the electricity in that complex. And if you really want to make friends and influence people, reinstate the policy that let the Parks and Rec Department offer water aerobic classes in your pool. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brewer.
Ben White.
I think he's left.
Miles Varner.
Actually, what I was going to be speaking about has, I guess, been taken off the agenda for the...
It's been taken off the consent agenda so we can discuss it.
Oh, okay. All right. I know there's some concern about the speed limit.
Mr. Miles, would you please give us your name and address?
Oh, I'm sorry. Miles Varner. I live at 114, excuse me, Northwest 3rd Street in Oak Island. And anyway, my concern, some of which I think isn't really a concern because I don't really know what the confusion is, but there was apparently some reports from the staff. They didn't know what was adopted at the ordinance last year, at about this time actually, and In fact, I think it was clear to me anyway, it was clear to some people, I think, on the council, and I think it was clear with the planner that it did in fact include the areas on Dolphin and Pelican as a part of that. And so they would have been reduced to 25. And Oak Island was included at one point. But anyway, Oak Island chose to remove themselves and backtrack to the 35-mile-an-hour speed limit. But there was no mention of a problem with people on Pelican or with Pelican and Dolphin at the time. So I'm assuming they would have realized that if Oak Island was affected, they were affected too by the way it was written. But in any case, I think with any of these things, there's room for discussion about it. And my main point is this is an issue of safety. It's not if it takes you a minute longer to get from one end of the island or another. The issue is safety. It's not whether we have crosswalks, for example, because I found out from the state that in fact you don't have to have side crosswalks to make it, safe for people. What you have to have is an adult population that understands that that's what you need to do, is slow down and come to a stop if necessary, because pedestrians do have the right of way in the state of North Carolina, even if they're jaywalking. That's the way it's written. That's the way it was told to me by the DOT, because I inquired it. I thought, we're going to have to put 50 crosswalks in here to make it at least somewhat safe. Now, I just went across to my car, and nobody was slowing down at all. I was clearly going to enter the road. Nobody slowed down.
Sorry. Thank you.
Anyway, I have other, could I just say one
Sorry.
thing?
Yes, sir, we do stick to a 3-minute limit.
Lynn Gullidge?
He could have turned it in to Lisa. He could have gave his comments to Lisa.
I passed his comments out.
You got it?
Yeah, I'm on there. Lynn Gullidge, 126 Southwest 5th Street. Mayor, council members, appreciate your time this evening. I stand up here laughing because I'm speaking from behind the issue, my request for rezoning. I really did think I was going to have an opportunity to talk. I thought as the individual filing for this rezoning, I would have an opportunity to talk, and I was not, quote, the public. But I think the writing was already on the wall with this particular group. But I will make a few points in the rezoning that was requested and the recommendation by the planning board to approve that rezoning. Number one, it was not spot rezoning. To Mr. Art Skipper, I know it's a little late. He's not here, but his properties scattered up and down Oak Island Drive are not contiguous. They're not surrounded by other commercial properties such as Jones's Seafood that takes full advantage of making money off the tourists and the locals of this community, as well as the hotel. And so that doesn't really pair out. I didn't know that there was a law against investing money to make money. I heard that argument about making money. I guess that's a bad thing. I don't know anybody that buys something to lose money unless you have too much money, and I'm not in that position yet, but I'll let you know when I get there. The other thing, let's see what else. Ghost town. I don't know if you've looked around. I have. There's no ghost town around here. In fact, people, we've got to prepare and we've got to be ready for the growth. And that does include commercial. And I hate to tell you, but what's out there commercial right now, the rehab costs are, most of the stuff that's out there, you need to razz it. You need to take it down. You need to start over. I know I'm in the middle of a remodel project, very excited about it, very, very costly, very costly. But when the product's done, it'll be good. But there are no big places to go to put in new businesses or to provide additional amenities that are needed by the residents as well as the tourists coming. So I will be back. I'm excited about the future of this place. It's my home. I have businesses here. I have investments here. I know Mr. Skipper, for example, who doubles his money often on properties, has no problem with that. And his properties up and down Oak Island Drive in the middle residential areas don't compare. Properties down east of where my property resides are spot zoned, and the council clearly sent people such as myself to come back here on an individual basis to request these type rezonings. And this is not spot rezoning. So I thank you for your time, and you will see me again.
Thank you.
That's all I have signed up.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we'll go to council reports. I have no report tonight. Do any of the council members? Okay, thank you. We entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended.
All in favor? Thank you. Item number 2 will be the discussion on the speed limit. So we'll have a clarification on exactly what the council meant the last time. I don't even know what that date was. It was about a year ago, Madam Clerk?
I'd have to look at the memo.
Okay. But anyway, we need to discuss this and make it very clear moving forward on what the council's wishes are as far as the speed limits on secondary roads.
I thought our intent was for the side streets so that it was consistent with the ones for Long Beach and Yopon Beach, not to include Yacht, Oak Island Drive, Pelican Beach, Dolphin. I thought side streets north of, am I the right direction? North of Oak Island Drive?
Yes, it's north.
Was I wrong?
No, you're right.
Okay, thank you.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's my understanding.
Mine too.
So should we, Mr. Eves, should we make a motion on that or just leave it like it's?
You can make a motion just to make it
To
clear.
be very clear. Anyone like to make a motion that, and state it, just like you said?
I'd like to make a motion to reiterate. Okay. You got that all written out for me, okay? I make a motion to confirm that previous action taken to reduce the speed limits on the side streets to 25 miles per hour did not include Dolphin and Pelican.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passed unanimously. Thank you. Committee appointments. Tonight, we have the Community Center Advisory Board. There is one term available that ends in October 2019. Applicant is Ron Jordan. Show of hands, please, for Mr. Jordan. Thank you. Parks and Recs Advisory Board, one term ending March 2020. There are 2 applicants. The first applicant is Bill Seika. Seika. 2. Lisa Nolan. 3, Ms. Nolan. Number 3 is the par 3.
Twice.
And we have, I'm not sure, excuse me?
I said, tell Charlie he can't vote twice.
Lisa, I'm sorry, I didn't look at the, I wrote the name down but didn't say how many terms. Let me see, here you go.
There's just one term available on the par 3, and it is for a resident of the island portion of town and not South Park.
Okay, and Mr. Airy is a resident? Perfect. All right, Lawrence Airy for par 3, unanimous. Thank you. Administrative report, Mr. Kelly.
Well, we have a brief report tonight. At Middleton Pump Station, we have had the engineers come in and evaluate the situation that we had. They have came back in and told us what we are going to look at next week to change out the absorption odor control that we currently have there. What we found was the odor or the sulfur and everything that was in the wet well is about 2 times as much as what it was designed for, the current unit that we have. And they're going to look at changing out the type of carbon that we utilize and also the station itself. And we'll bring something back to you in August for a plan to change that out and to hopefully fix that problem.
Post haste, that's good news for everyone, including the residents of that area. Thank you, Mr. Kelly, for looking into that.
Just a quick question, Mr. Kelly. How can I word this?
Gently.
Apparently, there's a design flaw there. If it's twice the amount that it was designed to.
Yeah, what we have shown is that the amount that's a typical solution in the wet well is about 400 parts per million, and what the system was designed for is about 200 parts per million. Probably 40% of the time that would work, but the other 60% of the time it is not working correctly. They had looked at trying to add something to the unit that we currently have, but we did not want to try to run 400 through a 200 and then out the other side into another 200. So what we're looking at is changing it out altogether to size it for the odor that we have actually found within our system.
So just for the record, who designed that?
Black and Veatch.
Thank you.
This will keep us from being a stinky island.
That's what we're trying to get to.
Eves, do you have any, is that, David, does that conclude your report?
Well, just quickly, the response to the United States Supreme Court in the Emerald Isle case will be filed August 12th, and then whether they take the petition up or not.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch what that was for.
The Emerald Isle Beach case that
Yes,
we
okay.
contributed money to, and I don't know how long they'll take to decide whether they're going to take the case up or not. So
Okay.
I'll just keep you posted. That's the next significant event in that case.
Right, very good, thank you. Moving on to the old business in the agenda, approval for the grant contract, North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, second grant for handicap access fishing tee at Veterans Park. Anyone have anything to ask our Parks and Rec Director? Thank you, Ms. Rebecca. Any questions for Rebecca?
How much is this one gonna cost us, Rebecca?
50.
Well, this is the Coastal Recreational Fishing License Grant, the second of two grants for Veterans Park. The cash match for this, should we use the cash match, is $5,900. The total grant amount is $110,000 and $600. But
So, we're gonna be able to use some grant money from another grant to take care of our match on this grant, right?
yes, sir, back in March, Town Council voted to approve the contract for the CAMA, Public Beach and Waterfront grant. And this is the second grant for the same project. We're very fortunate to be able to be accepted for both grants. And both grants administrators know that we've been fortunate enough to receive the other grant. So they do know that we can use that as our matching funds.
You're leveraging it.
Good job.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm good with that.
Anybody like to make a motion?
I'd like to ask one more question. You got a timeline on this? When's it gonna?
Well, upon Town Council approving the second contract, we can go ahead and send it out for bids, and hopefully, I'd love to have the project complete by this fall.
Okay.
Just depends on the contractor's timeline and how busy they are.
Make a motion to accept the North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality Grant contract as presented in our packet.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Consideration of amending, thank you, Rebecca, I'm sorry. Consideration of amending committee charge for Environmental Advisory Committee. That's on page 116.
This is the one that we changed last month, correct?
Yep.
You changed it in January.
And this is to change it to go back up to 9 members.
Make a motion to resume the original number of members for the Environmental Advisory Committee and set the roster at 9 members.
Second.
Second? Sheila? Okay. All in favor? Thank you. New business, consideration of changing the August meeting date.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, there's a typo on page 118. It says, Make a motion to, in that actual motion, the meeting to August the 13th, that's on Sunday. It would be August the 15th on Tuesday. And I think it shows that on the next page.
Yes.
But yeah.
I entertain a motion to change the meeting date of next month's meeting to Tuesday, August the 15th.
I make a motion to amend the list of regular meeting dates by changing the date for the August meeting to August 15th.
Second. All in favor? Thank you. Consideration of request to amend contract for Holland Consultant. Jake, you may want to come up to the podium. I feel like that the council may have some questions on this one.
And if I could say briefly, Mr. Holland was here this morning for a meeting with the planning board, but he had a previous engagement with another town tonight. And when we had changed our meeting, he was planned to be here Tuesday, but he could not be here this evening. So.
All right. Any questions for Jake?
Jake, I think one thing we need to look at too, because I remember when all this started and when we approved the contract originally, the statement was, however many that takes, I'll be there for it and we'll get the job done. I don't see this falling back on staff because staff really don't have the time to take this up, but I think 5,000 is a little bit much. I think if we cut that in half and tell them we'll give them 2,500, I'd be good with that if everybody else is.
I'd just like to know why is it taking more time? What's the problem?
Well, I think a few different things, and I can't speak for the contractor to say if he'd be okay with cutting in half and doing 2,500. If he were here, he'd be able to tell us, but you know, he could say no and then just close out the contract for all I know, but I guess I'll talk to him tomorrow morning. I think, one, the ordinance, Mr. Holland informed me, and I believe him, it was one of the worst zoning ordinances he's ever seen. The amount of work that had to be done to it was substantial. It's almost a totally new rewrite, which is what was needed. It's one of the reasons you've had text amendments before you, 1 to 2 or 3 a month for the last, since I've been here, patching it together. So it was a substantial amount of work, and the meetings went long and off on tangents and whatnot at times. We had a meeting this morning, and we got through all of the largest section 10, which only left the definitions afterwards, which we finished at 2. Actually, as of this morning, the UDO Review Board, i.e. the Planning Board, finished all of the UDO, and all that's left now is for the final draft with all their changes to come back before them for an official motion to recommend approval to you all, and then the incorporating all the changes and modifications and suggestions and whatnot that they had made, as well as all the public notifications, which can be lengthy. Plus, it's a large document too, so the time it takes for you all to read it will take some time as well. So I don't think you're going to see it at your August meeting. In fact, you most certainly won't. But perhaps the month after that or the following month for actual adoption, it could come to you.
So the planning board adopted it today or made a recommendation?
They would not adopt it today. They wanted to see a new printout and a new copy come to them at the regular planning board meeting next month.
So does Mr. Holland have to come back to the planning board next week?
Not for that one. It's a regular planning board meeting. I will be bringing in his revised printouts to give to them, and they will make a motion at that point.
So the only other time that Mr. Holland is going to come back here is to present to us?
Not necessarily. I'm not totally sure what all the public notification requirements are off the top of my head, but they're more stringent because it's a big document. It's not just a text amendment where you do 2 public notifications not less than 10 or more than 25 days before the date of the hearing. It's a whole rewrite of the whole thing. There's a substantial amount of more meetings and perhaps a public workshop that might be required.
I think that's all that's required is a public hearing. I spoke with Mr. Holland about it, and I'm fairly certain that all that's required is a public hearing.
When they bid the job, and I'm not into contracts, I don't know anything about it, you know, how the legal beagle stuff works. But when you bid a contract, you base it upon the facts that you're going to do certain things at a certain period of time.
This contract was based upon a certain X amount of meetings, rather than that.
It's a scope of work and
So
the
we
meetings.
had more meetings than we had planned on.
Yes, in fact, there were, there were two that we were able to move over from the CPAC committee that were not used, and it was the right thing to do, and we were able to use them for the UDO, which makes sense because the UDO, in my opinion, is much more complicated. And we're still over after that.
Jake, do you know how many meetings over we are?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Not even a ballpark figure. You didn't keep
Did the
track?
contract
2 to 3.
specify a number of meetings?
Yes,
I don't see it in here.
The original contract, did it specify?
yes, the original contract. And I don't think the, I
It
don't
states
know-
in here that it specified 10 in the original request for the scope of work was
There
10.
you go. So 10, and then an additional 2 from the CPAC that were rolled over.
But that
So
wasn't in the
12
contract.
plus then some.
What was in the original contract?
That I can't tell you, but if the, oh, it says right here, the contract specified 10 work sessions with the Oak Island Planning Board for the UDO.
And that's the contract that was signed by our previous board? They saw the 10 in there?
Yeah, I was not employed at the town. In fact, I actually bid for that contract with my previous company. We did not win.
It's not unusual for companies, especially like that, not knowing what they're going into. They don't go in blind to put some sort of stop factor or limit to how many meetings they attend.
It depends who you're working with. Some do it, like I think Jeff said, by product. Others do it this way. It just depends how it's crafted and what both parties agree to.
Was council advised when we were reaching that threshold?
I wasn't here. I was working for a competing firm, so I don't know.
As we approach the 10 meetings.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I thought you were saying when we signed the original contract. I don't know. I don't think so. Well, if you weren't advised, I suppose you would know if you were, so.
I don't see in the contract where it specifies a number of meetings.
Page 128.
Eight planning board meetings.
That was to be from,
Just says it's recommended.
yeah, it's just recommended.
So it's recommended that we have 8 planning board meetings, and we've had 10, and he's gonna have to come back an additional,
The contract specified 10, and we've had 12 with more needed.
It's about 8.
Where do you see 8? I'm looking at 10.
128, page 128.
And again, it wasn't said, this is all I will do. It just says that I recommend 8.
It's recommended.
Yeah. So wording's kind of,
There does seem to be disconnect from what was verbally said before the contract was signed and then what was actually on black and white paper in the contract.
Our intent is not to cause additional work for staff, but it's also our intent not to hand out $5,000 if we can get this finished up, if we're that close to being through, without spending an additional $5,000. Now, can you contact him and see if that price can be negotiated to get it finished?
Yeah, with what happened today with the planning board, we can go back to him and ask him where he thinks he needs to be and what it needs to cost.
I'd like to know how he came up with the figure. That's
His hourly rate plus the hourly rate of his
of everybody?
staff.
Who
that's
comes to
involved,
the,
too.
just one person comes, correct?
No.
They all come?
No, there's 2. Plus there's employees that stay at the office that work on incorporating the updates as well. His hourly rate is quite high. He is the executive. Yeah.
did he have an opportunity to look at the ordinances? He had opportunity to see what kind of mess it was in before he bid it on the work?
That would be a great question for Dale. I did ask him if he could go back in time and take the contract again, if he would. He said yes.
Was it made clear to the members of the committee that where they were at on the timeline, and that when he was in here talking, that the clock was running and money was being spent?
Absolutely.
Well, what you referred to on page 128 is the scope of services to be provided. The contract is actually 123 through 125. And the contract in paragraph 2, that total not to exceed $137,500 for all services rendered. That kind of covers it. And we both, last time I checked, he did sign that contract, and so did our town manager.
I think the council doesn't set very well when you do it and then come back and ask for payments. Basically, it sets a precedence. Anytime you sign a contract, it's a contract.
I agree. I ran a very large planning grant at my previous job. It was over $1 million, and we signed many contracts with many consulting firms. And we did many contract amendments with a lot of them for additional work or for situations like this. It's not a terribly uncommon thing to do, just depending on the situation.
Madam Mayor, I have a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we hold Mr. Holland to the original contract.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? It's unanimous, thank you. Consideration of a nuisance ordinance and proposed addition to the 2017-18 fee schedule. Jake, this is you as well. Might as well just stay up there for a while.
Any questions about it, or I can give a staff report or something? There are several topics covered in this revision. It's essentially the product of many months since I've been working here, just jotting down on a spreadsheet issues with the nuisance ordinance that comes up. I didn't think it was prudent to have a revision every other month to you guys, compile it all together. It's been split up. The original one was actually 8 pages long into a few different categories. But this is, for lack of a better word, sort of the miscellaneous category of a hodgepodge of different stuff. A lot of it's sort of random stuff like urban beehives or definition for exotic animals, things that really aren't issues around the island, but when the day comes, we'll have some regulations in place, not to, to regulate. And then a lot of it is also language verbatim from the general statutes regarding the process and some definitions, like there's a multi-part definition for junk vehicle, and there is a new one added to the general statutes. So that was copy and pasted in there, even though the wording is a bit off. Cart racks, things like that, are included in their collection of limbs and debris. But, it's important as we are increasing our code enforcement, and it's going to really jump once I get my new staff member, that what we have on paper reflects the desires of the town.
So
And
you're basically asking for tools for your toolbox to be able to enforce these ordinances?
yes,
That's what you mean?
more revisions are to come down the road. It's going to be a continual thing, but that will be a ways away, and this helps, in my opinion. That's why it's before you now.
A lot of these are definitions, and you mentioned the beekeeping. I just want to make it clear that beekeeping is legal in Oak Island. One of the other things is we have always had an ordinance that said it was illegal for a contractor, a tree contractor, to actually cut down trees and put them on the side of the road for the town to pick up. He has to actually include the hauling cost to, and that's in here as well. Is there anything that is not in our ordinance now other than definitions?
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in here that's not just definition cleanup. Actually, regulations that coincide with the definitions.
All the yellow is new, correct?
Exactly. A good example would be urban beehives, I believe, are defined, but then there's a separate section that lays out a few regulations associated with that.
All right, one of the things that I do want to take out of here, or I want to discuss, is the cart fees. We have, for the cart rack.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need a $50 fee for a cart rack.
Yeah, we can remove that if that's the will of the board. No problem.
And the other thing that I see on here too, with the carts, some of the streets are front, but a lot of the streets are also the back, not the side. So they must be able to build in the back part of their house. Because my street, across the street from me, they pick up, it's the front, but mine's the back.
Okay, so in section 24-69, mentions fronts and side yard setbacks, we could just add in rear as well? Okay, I'll write that in.
Any more questions for Jake? No, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, could I have the town attorney look under number 12 there? And
What page?
I'm sorry, page 135, to look at number 12 and see if that is written correctly.
I don't have number pages like you guys. What section are you looking at?
So odor.
Odors.
Odors, okay.
What's the question?
Question would be, if we were in a position where we were causing an odor, what's gonna happen, Mr. Attorney?
Well, we're neither a residential nor a commercial property would be my first answer. So it's not applicable to the town.
Okay. Don't want to be sure.
Point.
Any more questions? All right, moving on.
Very diplomatic.
Thank you, Jake.
Whatever we need to do with it.
Approve it, or?
So just to be
I'll
clear.
entertain a motion.
Yeah, you got it.
I'll entertain a motion to approve
With the changes recommended?
with the,
by-
correct.
Madam Mayor, I make a motion that we approve this with the changes made.
Second? All in favor? Thank you. Thank you for your hard work, Jake. That, taking the complaints and jotting them down and then bringing them to us all one time, it seems to be.
Never take a vacation, Jake.
Really, to really upstep on our ordinance enforcement. All right, number
Brunch.
4 is the brunch bill. And I'm not sure, are all of you familiar with the brunch bill?
Yes.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to, what is that we have to do? Do we make a resolution, or is there an actual ordinance you have to write?
Just like the last one, it's in a different chapter, but
Uh-huh.
make a motion to adopt the language.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt the ordinance text change modification in reference to the brunch bill.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Nope.
I'm not in favor of it.
All opposed? All right, 4-1, Lisa. This time I entertain a motion to go into closed session.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to go into closed session, discuss specific personnel, and to consult with the town attorney on pending and potential litigation pursuant to NCGS 143-318.11A 1, 3, 5, and 6.
Second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Next door to here. Oh.
This time I'll call the meeting back to order. I'd like to state that there was no action taken during closed session, and I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, please. All in favor? Thank you.
You just make up one, Lisa.